Sarah Chen wiped the grease from her hands and stared at the impossible sight outside her repair station's window. A ship the size of a small moon hung in the darkness of space, its hull covered in scales that shimmered like polished bronze. She had seen pictures of draconic vessels before, but never anything like this. This ship was ancient. This ship was beautiful. This ship was also clearly dying. The communication panel beeped. Sarah hit the button with her elbow, her hands still covered in oil from the mining drone she had been fixing. "This is Chen's repair station. We're pretty small, so if you need major work, I can give you coordinates for." "Silence, human." The voice that interrupted her was deep and rumbling, like rocks grinding together. "The Emperor Karzan requires your services. You will accept." Sarah raised an eyebrow. She had been running this station alone for 3 years, ever since her father died and her brother left for the inner colonies. She had heard every kind of rude customer in the galaxy, but this was new. "Listen, buddy, I don't care if you're the emperor of the whole damn universe. You talk to me with respect, or you can float on to the next station." There was a long silence. Then a different voice spoke, this one tired and ancient. "Please forgive my guard's manners. I am Karzan. I am indeed an emperor, though that matters little now. My ship is dying, and I have nowhere else to go." Something in that voice made Sarah pause. She had heard desperation before. Every broke miner, every struggling colonist who limped into her station carried it. But this was different. This was the sound of someone who had tried everything and found nothing but failure. "I'll take a look." An hour later, Sarah stood in her repair bay and tried not to stare. The Dragon Emperor was massive, easily 3 meters tall, with scales that shifted from deep red to gold in the light. His eyes were like molten amber, ancient and sad. Behind him stood 6 guards, each nearly as large, their hands resting on weapons that hummed with energy Sarah couldn't identify. But it was the Emperor himself who held her attention. He moved slowly, as if each step caused pain. His scales, which should have gleamed, looked dull. When he breathed, small wisps of smoke escaped his nostrils, but the fire seemed weak. "You are young," the Emperor said, looking at Sarah with those ancient eyes. 28, Sarah replied, "but I've been fixing things since I could hold a wrench. My dad taught me, and his dad taught him. 3 generations of keeping junk flying." One of the guards sneered, "The Emperor's flagship is not junk, human. The Eternal Flame is a sacred vessel, bonded to His Majesty's very soul. It has existed for 3,000 years. Sarah whistled low. 3,000 years? No wonder it's having problems. What's wrong with it? The Emperor gestured to a holographic display. Images appeared in the air, showing the ship's internal systems. Sarah stepped closer, studying the readouts. Her education had been practical, learned in this very repair bay, but she could read energy signatures and structural diagrams as easily as other people read books. "The core is failing," the Emperor said. "The ship and I are linked through ancient draconic technology. When the ship dies, I die. When I die, the ship dies. We have perhaps 3 weeks remaining." "Have you tried other repair stations?" Sarah asked, still studying the hologram. "I have visited 17 master shipwrights," the Emperor said. His voice carried the weight of exhaustion. "The finest technomancers of the Draconic Imperium. The biomechanical specialists of the Vex Collective. Even the quantum engineers of the Zenith Assembly. All have failed." Sarah looked up at him. "And you came to a human? To a repair station in the middle of nowhere?" "I came because I am dying, and I have no options left." The Emperor paused. "But also because I have heard things about your species. You fix what others call unfixable. You see solutions where others see only problems. You are stubborn." "We prefer to call it determined," Sarah said with a small smile. She looked back at the hologram. "Can I go inside? See the core in person? The guards stirred, hands moving toward weapons. One stepped forward. Impossible. No outsider has ever entered the eternal flame's heart. It is forbidden. It is sacred. The Emperor raised one clawed hand, and the guards fell silent. If I do not try everything, I will die. The human may enter. Sarah grabbed her toolkit, a battered metal box that had belonged to her grandfather. As she followed the Emperor toward his ship, one of the guards moved close to her. If you damage the eternal flame, he hissed, if you harm the Emperor in any way, your death will be slow. Sarah looked up at the towering alien warrior. If I can't fix it, he dies anyway. So maybe save the threats and let me work. The interior of the eternal flame was like nothing Sarah had ever seen. The walls weren't metal, but something organic, covered in scales that pulsed with faint light. The air was warm and smelled like cinnamon and smoke. As she walked deeper into the ship, she could swear she heard something, a sound like breathing, a sound like crying. The core chamber took her breath away. A massive crystal the size of a car floated in the center of the room. Held in place by energy fields Sarah couldn't begin to understand. The crystal pulsed with light, but the pulses were irregular, stuttering. Around it, conduits of living metal stretched to every part of the ship. Sarah set down her toolkit and approached the crystal slowly. She reached out, hesitated, then placed her hand on its surface. The ship screamed. Sarah jerked back, but the sound wasn't in her ears. It was in her mind. Pain, loneliness, exhaustion. The ship was alive, truly alive, and it was suffering. What is wrong? The Emperor asked, concern in his voice. Sarah turned to look at him, her eyes wide. Your ship isn't broken, she said quietly. It's hurt, it's sick, and I think it's been trying to tell you something for a very long time. The Emperor stared at her. That is impossible. I am bonded to the ship. I would know. When was the last time you really listened? Sarah asked. The ancient Emperor had no answer. Sarah rolled up her sleeves and opened her toolkit. All right, she said to the crystal, to the ship, to whatever consciousness lived in this vessel. Let's figure out what you're trying to say. Outside, stars burned in the darkness. Inside the eternal flame, a human mechanic began a repair job that would change the galaxy. She just didn't know it yet. The Emperor watched as Sarah pulled out tools and scanning devices, muttering to herself about energy signatures and resonance patterns. For the first time in decades, he felt something he had almost forgotten. Sarah had been working for 6 hours straight when she finally understood what she was looking at. The other technicians had been wrong. They had treated the eternal flame like a machine that needed fixing. They had tried to replace parts, recalibrate systems, boost power flows. But this ship wasn't just a machine. It was alive in ways that made human artificial intelligence look simple. Talk to me, Sarah whispered, her hands still on the crystal core. She had set up her scanning equipment around the chamber, and the readings made no sense according to any engineering she knew. Energy flowed backward. Systems that should have been separate were tangled together. And underneath it all, that constant feeling of pain. The ship pulsed, and suddenly Sarah's mind was filled with images. She saw the ship being born, grown from a seed crystal in the heart of a star. She saw a young dragon, barely more than a hatchling, placing his clawed hand on the core for the first time. The bond forming between them, like two souls recognizing each other. That young dragon had been Karzan, 3,000 years ago. Sarah pulled her hand back, gasping. The Emperor stood nearby, watching her with those ancient eyes. You felt it, he said. It wasn't a question. How is this possible? Sarah asked. This ship is bonded to your actual soul? Draconic technology is not like yours, the Emperor explained. He moved closer to the crystal, and it pulsed brighter at his approach. We do not build ships. We grow them. We bond with them. The ship feels what I feel what the ship feels. We are two parts of one being. Sarah grabbed her datapad and started taking notes. Then why can't the draconic technicians fix it? They should understand this better than anyone. They tried every ritual, every ancient technique. The Emperor's voice was heavy with frustration. They fed the ship energy from sacred flames. They performed bonding ceremonies. They even suggested I try to bond with a new ship. What happened? The ship rejected all of it, and bonding with a new ship would mean killing the eternal flame. I refused. Sarah looked at the crystal, then at the Emperor, then back at her readings. Something was nagging at her, a pattern she couldn't quite see. She had spent years fixing engines and reactors and life support systems. She knew how to look at broken things and find the why behind the what. "Can I ask you a personal question?" Sarah said. The guards tensed, but the Emperor nodded. "Who were you when you first bonded with this ship?" The Emperor was silent for a long moment. "I was young, idealistic. I wanted to explore the galaxy, to see every star, to meet every species. The draconic clans were scattered and weak. I dreamed of uniting them, not through conquest, but through shared wonder. And now?" The Emperor's scales seemed to darken. "Now I am the Emperor of the largest military power in 3 sectors. I have conquered 47 worlds. I have fought in more wars than I can count. I am respected. I am feared. He paused. "I am not who I was." Sarah looked at the crystal again, and suddenly the pattern clicked into place. "That's it," she breathed. "What is? Your ship is bonded to who you were, not who you are." Sarah stood up, excitement making her speak faster. "Look at these readings. The energy signature is stable for memories older than 2,000 years. But recent memories, the last 1,000 years especially, they're causing disruption. It's like the ship is rejecting parts of you." The Emperor's eyes widened. "That is impossible. The bond cannot be selective." "Maybe it's not trying to be," Sarah said. She paced around the crystal, her mind racing. "Maybe the ship is sick because it's carrying weight it was never meant to carry. You bonded with a dreamer who wanted to explore, but you fed it 3,000 years of war and conquest and hard decisions. The ship didn't break down. It's drowning." One of the guards stepped forward. "You dare suggest the Emperor has made the ship ill? His Majesty has given everything to the Imperium." "I'm not judging him," Sarah interrupted. "I'm trying to save his life. Look, every machine I've ever fixed had the same basic problem. It was being used for something it wasn't designed for. You can force it to work for a while, but eventually something breaks." She turned to the Emperor. "You're not a machine, and neither is your ship, but the principle is the same. The bond was created with one version of you. That version doesn't exist anymore. The ship is trying to hold on to something that's gone." The Emperor sat down heavily, his massive form seeming to shrink. "Then I am doomed. I cannot undo 3,000 years. I cannot become who I was." Sarah pulled up a chair and sat across from him. It should have been funny, a small human sitting face to face with a dragon emperor. But in that moment, they were just two people trying to solve an impossible problem. "On Earth," Sarah said, "we have a saying, the only constant is change. Humans change all the time. We have to, or we don't survive. I'm not the same person I was when my dad died. I'm not the same person I was last year. Change is how we stay alive." "Dragons do not change," the Emperor said quietly. "We endure. We remember. We preserve." "Yeah, and look where that got you. You're killing yourself and your ship because you can't accept that you've grown. That's not strength. That's stubbornness." The guards looked ready to attack her, but the Emperor raised his hand again. "You are bold, human. Some would call it insulting. I call it honest. Sarah leaned forward. You want to know what I think? I think your ship doesn't hate who you've become. I think it's been screaming at you for centuries to integrate it all. The dreamer and the emperor. The explorer and the conqueror. But you've been treating them as separate things, and it's tearing you both apart. The emperor stared at her. How could you possibly know this? Because I can hear it. Sarah placed her hand on the crystal again, and this time she was ready for the flood of emotion. Your ship isn't dying. It's begging. It wants all of you, not just the parts you think are good enough. The chamber fell silent, except for the irregular pulse of the crystal. Sarah watched the Emperor's face, seeing thoughts move behind those ancient eyes. Finally, he spoke. If you are correct, how do we fix it? Sarah grinned, the expression of someone who had just figured out a particularly tricky problem. We do what humans do best. We rebuild. But first, I'm going to need a lot of coffee, some of my father's old neural interface equipment, and your permission to try something that might kill all three of us. The Emperor looked at the dying crystal, then at the small human mechanic with grease under her fingernails and fire in her eyes. Tell me what you need, he said. Sarah started making a list. Outside the ship, stars wheeled slowly through space. Inside, a human and a dragon began planning something that had never been attempted before. The ship pulsed with something that might have been hope, or might have been fear. Sarah figured they were probably the same thing anyway. Sarah's father had been many things. A mechanic, a dreamer, a man who believed that any problem could be solved if you understood it well enough. He had also been a little bit crazy, which was why Sarah's repair station had equipment that most mechanics had never even heard of. She dragged the neural interface helmet from the storage locker where it had sat for 3 years. Dust covered its surface, but the technology inside was still good. Her father had used it to test AI systems, to diagnose complex computer problems by directly connecting his mind to the machines. Sarah had never thought she would use it to connect an emperor to his own soul. This is insane, she muttered, setting the helmet down next to the crystal core. Around her, she had built a web of human technology and draconic biosystems, jury-rigging connections that should not have worked, but somehow did. Fusion batteries fed power to crystal conduits. Human processors translated signals into pulses of living energy. It looked like a mess, but Sarah could see the logic of it. The Emperor watched from across the chamber. He had been quiet for the past 12 hours while Sarah worked, asking only occasional questions. His guards had given up trying to understand what she was doing, and simply stood watch, their faces showing a mix of confusion and concern. Explain it to me again, the Emperor said. Sarah wiped sweat from her forehead. Okay. So the ship is bonded to your soul, right? But there's a disconnect between who you were and who you are. The ship can't reconcile those two versions of you, so it's tearing itself apart trying. Yes, you have said this. What I'm building is basically a bridge, a way for you to go back through your own memories while staying connected to the ship's consciousness. You'll experience your past, but the ship will experience it with you. Together, you can reintegrate everything. Make it all part of one story instead of two conflicting ones. The Emperor moved closer, studying the equipment. And if this fails? If it fails, the feedback could fry your brain, destroy the ship's core, and probably kill me too, since I'll be connected as an anchor. Sarah said it matter-of-factly, like she was discussing the weather. But if we do nothing, you die in 2 weeks anyway, so I figure it's worth the risk. One of the guards stepped forward. You would risk your life for an emperor you just met? For a ship that is not even your species? Sarah looked at the guard, then at the Emperor, then at the pulsing crystal. I would risk my life to fix something beautiful that's broken. That's what mechanics do. We see the potential in broken things. The Emperor's scales shifted color, rippling from red to gold. It was a draconic expression Sarah didn't know, but she thought it might be respect. "What do you need me to do?" he asked. "Put this on." Sarah handed him the modified neural helmet. She had spent 4 hours adjusting it to fit his massive head, incorporating draconic biotech so it would interface with his physiology. "Then place your hand on the core, like you did when you first bonded." The Emperor took the helmet, turning it over in his clawed hands. For a moment, he looked old and tired, every one of his 3,000 years visible in his eyes. Then he straightened his shoulders and placed the helmet on his head. Sarah put on her own helmet, a smaller human version. She had already connected herself to the system, ready to serve as an anchor point. If the Emperor got lost in his memories, she would pull him back. If the ship started to collapse, she would stabilize it. At least, that was the plan. "Ready?" she asked. "But we proceed anyway." He placed his massive hand on the crystal core. Sarah touched it with her own hand. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the universe exploded into light and memory. Sarah found herself standing in a void filled with stars. Beside her, the Emperor stood not as the ancient warrior she knew, but as a young dragon, barely past adolescence. His scales gleamed bright gold, and his eyes held wonder instead of weariness. "Where are we?" the young Emperor asked. "In your memories," Sarah said. She could feel the ship's presence around them, a vast consciousness observing everything. "We need to walk through them. All of them, the good and the bad." The first memory bloomed into existence. Sarah saw the young Emperor standing in a crystal chamber, placing his hand on a newborn core. She felt the joy of that moment, the pure excitement of bonding with something that would be his companion for life. The ship sang with happiness, remembering this moment. Then the memory shifted. The Emperor was older now, leading his first flight of ships to explore a distant nebula. Sarah felt his wonder at seeing new stars, new worlds. The ship remembered this too, pulsing with the joy of discovery. But then the memories grew darker. War. The Emperor's clan attacked by rivals, his parents killed, the young dreamer making a choice to become a warrior, to protect what remained of his people. Sarah felt the ship shudder at these memories. This was where the divide had begun. "It's okay," she whispered, speaking to both the Emperor and the ship. "Keep going. Don't run from it." More memories, victories and defeats, alliances forged and broken. The Emperor conquering world after world, not for glory, but because each conquest prevented a war, saved lives, brought stability to chaos. But each victory also hardened him, made him colder, more distant from the dreamer he had been. The ship thrashed in their shared consciousness, trying to reject these memories. "Stop," the young Emperor said. But he wasn't young anymore. With each memory he aged, his scales darkening, his eyes growing harder. "This is too much." "No," Sarah said firmly. She grabbed his arm, or the memory of his arm, or whatever they were in this strange space between mind and reality. "You don't get to run away. The ship has been carrying this alone for 3,000 years. The least you can do is carry it with him." "Him?" The Emperor looked confused. "The ship, he's not in it. He's your partner, your other half, and he's been drowning in your pain while you pretended it didn't exist." Sarah turned to address the void around them, knowing the ship could hear. "And you stubborn crystal, you don't get to reject parts of his life just because they're hard." He fought those wars to protect people. He made those hard choices because nobody else could. That's still the dreamer you bonded with. He just had to grow up. The void pulsed with emotion, anger, sadness, confusion. "Show me the worst," the Emperor said suddenly. "The memory I have hidden even from myself." The void went dark. Then a new memory emerged, and Sarah gasped. The Emperor stood on a burning world. Around him, cities crumbled. His fleet filled the sky, and before him knelt the leader of a species that had refused to surrender, refused to join the Imperium. The Emperor's claw was raised, ready to strike. "I remember this," the Emperor said quietly. "The Talvex Rebellion. They fought for 3 years. Millions died. I finally cornered their leader, and You spared him," Sarah said, watching the memory unfold. The Emperor lowered his claw. He offered terms instead of death. The rebellion ended not in genocide, but in negotiation. "I had forgotten," the Emperor whispered. "I remembered only the war, the death toll. I forgot that I showed mercy." "You forgot a lot of things," Sarah said. "You forgot that every hard choice you made for a reason. You forgot that the dreamer is still in there, just older and scarier." The ship pulsed around them, and Sarah felt its confusion beginning to shift. It was starting to understand. "You were never two different people," Sarah continued. "You were one person, growing, changing, adapting. The dreamer became the emperor because the universe needed an emperor. But the dreamer never died." The Emperor looked at his younger self, then at the memories surrounding them. Thousands of years of life, of choices, of pain and joy, and everything in between. "How do I make this right?" he asked. Sarah smiled. "You accept it, all of it. You tell your ship that this is who you are. The explorer and the warrior. The dreamer and the emperor. And you promise to remember both parts from now on." The Emperor closed his eyes. In the void of shared consciousness, he began to speak. He told the ship about every memory, every choice, every moment of doubt and strength. He apologized for hiding his pain. He thanked the ship for carrying him through it all. And slowly, the ship began to heal. Sarah felt the shift like dawn breaking. The crystal core pulsed with new light. The damaged connections began to repair themselves. Energy flowed smoothly again. The Emperor opened his eyes and looked at Sarah. "Thank you, human mechanic." "Sarah," she said. "My name is Sarah Chen." "Thank you, Sarah Chen, for teaching an old dragon that it is acceptable to grow." The void dissolved. They were back in the core chamber, their hands still on the crystal. But everything had changed. The crystal pulsed with steady, strong light. The Emperor's scales gleamed bright gold. The ship was singing. And for the first time in 1,000 years, the Emperor remembered how to sing back. The transformation was not instant. Sarah learned this the hard way, when the crystal core suddenly flared with energy so intense it knocked her backward. She hit the chamber wall and slid down, dazed but conscious. The Emperor remained standing, his hands still on the core, his entire body glowing with an inner fire. "Your Majesty." One of the guards rushed toward him, but Sarah grabbed the alien's arm. "Don't," she gasped. "He's integrating. The ship is rebuilding the bond. If you interrupt now, it could kill them both." The guard looked at her, then at his Emperor, and reluctantly stepped back. Sarah pulled herself to her feet, watching the readouts on her equipment. Energy levels were spiking, but not randomly. There was a pattern to it, a rhythm, like a heartbeat finding its proper pace. The human technology she had rigged was struggling to keep up with the draconic systems, but it was holding. Barely. "Come on," she muttered, adjusting power flows and rerouting connections. "Come on, you beautiful mess. Stay together." The Emperor's voice filled the chamber, speaking in the ancient draconic language. Sarah couldn't understand the words, but she felt their meaning through the connection. Apology, acceptance, love. The ship responded in pulses of light and waves of emotion. They were talking to each other, really talking, for the first time in centuries. Hours passed. Sarah worked constantly, making tiny adjustments to keep the systems balanced. The guards watched in silence, their earlier hostility replaced by something like awe. Even they could feel the change happening, the ancient bond being reforged into something new. Finally, As Sarah's exhaustion was reaching its limit, the Emperor removed his hand from the core. The glow around him faded, and he turned to look at her. His eyes were different, still ancient, still wise, but now they held a spark of something that had been missing before. Joy. "It is done," he said simply. Sarah sagged against her equipment. "Is the ship okay? Are you okay?" "We are more than okay." The Emperor looked around the chamber, and Sarah realized the walls were changing. The scales that covered them were shifting from dull bronze to brilliant gold. The organic conduits pulsed with steady, healthy light. "We are whole." One of the guards stepped forward. "Your Majesty, your scales, you look as you did when you first ascended to the throne." It was true. The Emperor's scales had brightened, the dull patches that had marked him gone. He stood straighter, moved with less pain. He looked younger, or perhaps just less burdened. "Sarah Chen did not just repair my ship," the Emperor said. "She helped me repair myself." Sarah waved a hand dismissively, though she was grinning. "I just turned some wrenches and rewired some stuff. You did the hard part. You showed me that accepting change is not weakness. For a species that prides itself on endurance and tradition, that is a revolutionary concept." The Emperor moved closer to her. "What you have done here will echo through the Draconic Imperium for generations." "I just hope it echoes with fair trade agreements," Sarah said, "because fixing your ship wiped out my supplies budget for the next year." The Emperor laughed, a sound like thunder mixed with music. "You shall have more than fair trade agreements. But first, there is something I must show you." He led her deeper into the ship, the guards following behind. Sarah marveled at the changes around her. The eternal flame had been dying before, its systems struggling. Now every wall hummed with energy. Every conduit flowed with perfect efficiency. The ship felt alive, aware, welcoming. They entered a chamber Sarah hadn't seen before. It was circular, with walls that seemed to be made of transparent crystal. Through them, she could see stars and nebulae in every direction, as if the chamber itself was floating in space. "This is the ship's memory chamber," the Emperor explained, "where significant moments are stored and can be experienced again. The ship wishes to share something with you." "With me?" Sarah looked around nervously. "Why?" "Watch." The stars around them shifted. Suddenly Sarah was looking at Earth, her homeworld, but not as it existed now. This was Earth 300 years ago, during the collapse. Cities burned, oceans rose, the climate had turned against humanity, and billions died. "I've seen this in history books," Sarah said quietly. "The worst century of human existence." "Keep watching," the Emperor said. The image shifted. Sarah saw humans rebuilding. Slowly, painfully, they adapted to their changed world. They developed new technologies. They learned to work together in ways they never had before. They took their broken world and fixed it, piece by piece, generation by generation. She saw her great-great-grandmother helping to build the first orbital station, saw her great-grandfather piloting one of the first colony ships, saw her grandmother opening a repair business on Mars, saw her father teaching a young Sarah how to fix a broken engine. "The ship has been watching humanity," the Emperor said. "Even before I came to your station, the eternal flame had been studying your species. It saw what you did to survive, how you rebuild, how you refuse to give up on broken things." Sarah felt tears on her cheeks. "Why show me this?" "Because the ship insisted on coming to you. Not to the master technicians, not to the biomechanical specialists, to a human mechanic at a small repair station. Because the ship knew that humans understand something the rest of the galaxy does not." "What's that?" "That being broken is not the end. It is the beginning of becoming something new." The Emperor placed a clawed hand on her shoulder. "You saved my life, Sarah Chen. But more than that, you taught me that my species has been wrong about something fundamental. We believe that strength comes from unchanging endurance. You showed me that true strength comes from the courage to transform. Sarah wiped her eyes. I just applied basic human psychology to your soul-ship connection. Any human therapist could have figured it out. Perhaps, but you were the one who did. The Emperor removed his hand and straightened. There are things I must change. Policies I must reform. A culture I must challenge. That sounds dangerous, Sarah said. It will be. Many of my people will resist. They will call me weak for showing emotion, for admitting I was wrong, for suggesting that dragons can grow and change. The Emperor's eyes glinted. But I have learned from humans that sometimes the most dangerous thing you can do is also the most necessary. Sarah smiled. Good luck with that. Try not to start any civil wars. I make no promises. The Emperor gestured to one of his guards. Before I go, my ship and I have agreed on something. A gift, as inadequate as it may be. The guard brought forward a data chip. Sarah took it, turning it over in her hands. What is this? Schematics, the Emperor said. For hybrid human draconic technology. Your species works with machines in ways we never imagined. Our species grows technology that yours cannot conceive. Together, the possibilities are limitless. That chip contains the beginning of a new field of engineering. Sarah's eyes widened. This is worth more than money can measure. I know. The Emperor bowed his head, a gesture of deep respect in draconic culture. Use it wisely. Share it with other humans, and perhaps someday, dragons and humans can build something together that neither could create alone. He turned to leave, his guards falling in behind him. At the chamber entrance, he paused and looked back. One more thing, Sarah Chen. The ship asked me to tell you something. What? Thank you for listening, for seeing a soul in what others saw as just a machine. For proving that the greatest technology is not power or efficiency, but compassion. Sarah stood alone in the memory chamber, holding the data chip, surrounded by images of human perseverance and dragon transformation. Outside, the eternal flame prepared for departure. Its engines, which had been stuttering and weak, now roared with perfect power. The ship that had been dying was reborn, stronger than it had ever been. And in a small repair station at the edge of known space, a human mechanic realized that sometimes fixing broken things meant fixing broken hearts as well. She smiled and got back to work. She still had a mining drone to repair, after all. 3 months after the eternal flame left her station, Sarah was up to her elbows in a malfunctioning water recycler. When her communication panel started going crazy. Alerts, messages, requests for docking permission. She pulled her hands out of the machinery and stared at the screen. 47 ships were requesting permission to dock. 47. Her station had never serviced more than 3 ships at once. This can't be right, she muttered, pulling up the ship registry. Her eyes widened. There were draconic vessels, human corporate ships, alien science teams, and even a delegation from the Zenith Assembly, the quantum engineers who had failed to fix the Emperor's ship. She opened the first communication request. A human woman appeared on screen, middle-aged with graying hair and excited eyes. Is this Chen's repair station? Are you Sarah Chen? Who are you? Dr. Patricia Owens, Xenotechnology Division of Earth's Engineering Corps. Is it true? Did you really use neural interface technology to repair a draconic soul-bond ship? Sarah blinked. How do you know about that? Everyone knows about it. The Emperor announced it 3 weeks ago. He called it the Reforging Accord. He's inviting human engineers to work with draconic technomancers, sharing knowledge. This could revolutionize everything we know about ship design, artificial intelligence, biomechanical systems. I have 50 researchers who want to study your methods. Before Sarah could respond, another communication request came through. Then another. Within 10 minutes, she had 20 conversations happening at once. Scientists wanting to study what she had done. Ship captains asking if she could fix their vessels. Draconic engineers requesting to learn human repair techniques. Even a few journalists asking for interviews. Sarah closed all the channels and sat down heavily. "What did you do, you crazy dragon?" she whispered. The answer came a week later, when the eternal flame returned to her station. This time, the Emperor didn't arrive desperate and dying. He came in glory, the ship shining like a second sun. Sarah watched from her observation window as the massive vessel approached, its movements graceful and powerful. This was what the ship had always been meant to be. The Emperor came to her repair bay alone this time. No guards, no ceremony. He looked at Sarah and smiled, an expression that still seemed strange on his draconic face. "You have been busy," he said, gesturing at the ships crowding around her station. "You told the whole galaxy what we did," Sarah said. "I've got scientists asking me questions I don't understand, reporters wanting my life story, and 3 different species offering me jobs I'm not qualified for." "You are qualified for all of them," the Emperor said calmly. "You did what the galaxy's greatest minds could not. You proved that species who approach problems differently can achieve breakthroughs by working together." Sarah ran a hand through her hair. "I just fixed your ship. I didn't mean to start some kind of revolution." The best revolutions are often unintentional. The Emperor walked to her equipment, the same tools she had used to save his life. "In the 3 months since you healed me, I have begun reforming the Draconic Imperium. I have opened our technology archives to other species. I have started peace negotiations with civilizations we have been fighting for centuries. I have challenged 3,000 years of tradition. How's that going? 2 minor lords attempted a coup, and I have received more assassination threats than I can count." He turned to her with that strange smile. "It is wonderful." Sarah laughed despite herself. "You're crazy." "I learned from the best." He became more serious. "But I did not come just to thank you again, though you deserve thanks every day for the rest of your life. I came with a proposal." He gestured, and a holographic display appeared showing a space station, massive and gleaming, under construction near a binary star system. "The first joint research station," the Emperor explained. "A place where humans, dragons, and any other species willing to work together can share knowledge. A place where your approach to problem-solving can be taught alongside our ancient techniques. A place where broken things, whether ships or cultures or relationships, can be healed." Sarah stared at the hologram. That's incredible. "But why are you showing me this?" "Because I want you to run it." "What? No way. I'm a mechanic, not an administrator. I fix things in my repair bay. I don't run space stations." "You fixed an emperor and his soul-bonded ship with nothing but determination, empathy, and jury-rigged technology," the Emperor said. "You can certainly run a space station. Find someone qualified. Find someone with degrees and experience and—" "I need someone who understands what this station is really about," the Emperor interrupted. "Not credentials, not tradition, not politics, someone who sees broken things and wants to fix them. Someone who believes that different approaches working together create something better than either could alone." Sarah looked at the hologram, then at her small repair bay, then back at the hologram. "I don't know the first thing about managing research teams or diplomatic relations, or humans are good at that, remember?" The Emperor's voice was gentle. "I am not asking you to stop being a mechanic, Sarah. I am asking you to teach the galaxy how to fix things the way humans do, with compassion, with creativity, with the willingness to try things that have never been tried before." Sarah was quiet for a long time. She thought about her father, who had taught her that every problem had a solution, if you looked at it the right way. She thought about her grandfather, who had left Earth to build something new on Mars. She thought about all the humans who had rebuilt their world after the collapse, refusing to accept that broken meant finished. "If I do this," she said slowly, "I have conditions." "Name them." "First, the station has to have a proper repair bay, a big one, because I'm still going to fix things with my own hands." "Agreed." "Second, no bureaucratic nonsense. If someone has a good idea, we try it. We don't form a committee to study whether we should form a committee to consider studying it." The Emperor's eyes gleamed with amusement. "Agreed." "Third, we name it something better than First Joint Research Station. That's boring. What would you suggest?" Sarah thought for a moment, then smiled. "The reforging. Because that's what we're doing. Taking broken things and making them into something new." "The reforging," the Emperor repeated. "Perfect." He extended his claw, and Sarah shook it with her much smaller hand. Around them, through the windows of her repair bay, dozens of ships waited. Scientists and engineers and dreamers from across the galaxy, all drawn here by the story of a human mechanic who had saved an emperor's life by teaching him that change was not weakness. "When do we start?" Sarah asked. "But tonight, I have one more thing to show you." The Emperor led her outside the station, to a viewing port that looked out over the stars. As they watched, the eternal flame began to glow. The light spread across its hull, creating patterns that shifted and changed. Images appeared in the light, like a holographic display made from the ship itself. Sarah saw Earth rising over the lunar surface. She saw the first human colony ships leaving the solar system. She saw her father teaching her to fix a broken circuit board. She saw herself, 3 months ago, placing her hand on the ship's core and listening when everyone else had only given orders. "The ship wanted you to see this," the Emperor said. "These are the memories it has added to its core. Human memories. Your memories. You are part of the eternal flame now, as surely as I am." Sarah felt tears streaming down her face, but she didn't bother to wipe them away. "I'm part of a 3,000-year-old dragon ship?" "You are part of something greater than that. You are part of a new way of seeing the universe. One where different species don't just coexist, but become something better by working together." The light show faded, but the message remained clear. Sarah Chen, third-generation human mechanic from a backwater repair station, had changed the course of galactic history by doing what humans did best, refusing to accept that broken things couldn't be fixed. 6 months later, the reforging station opened. Sarah stood in its central bay, watching as the first research teams arrived. Draconic technomancers worked alongside human engineers. Alien scientists shared data with species they had never met before. And in every workshop, every laboratory, every meeting room, there was one rule that Sarah had insisted on. Listen to what the broken thing is trying to tell you. The Emperor visited often, sometimes for diplomatic reasons, sometimes just to talk. His reforms continued to shake the Draconic Imperium, but with each passing month, more dragons began to see the wisdom in what he was doing. Change was hard, but growth required it. And always, always the eternal flame sang. Its song was different now, richer and more complex. It carried the harmony of dragon dreams and human determination, of ancient wisdom and innovative thinking, of souls reforged in the fires of compassion and courage. Sarah would sometimes stand in the station's observation deck late at night, looking out at the stars and thinking about how far she had come, from a lonely mechanic in a failing station to the head of the most important scientific facility in known space. It was overwhelming when she let herself think about it. But then she would remember what her father had always told her. Every big fix starts with one small step. One wire reconnected. One problem solved. One person willing to try. She had fixed a Dragon Emperor's ship. She had helped him reforge his soul. And in doing so, she had given the galaxy something it desperately needed. Hope that broken things could be healed, faith that different approaches could work together, and the knowledge that sometimes the best solutions came from the most unexpected places. In her quarters, Sarah kept her grandfather's old toolkit, battered and worn. She used it still, even though she now had access to the most advanced technology in the galaxy, because the tools reminded her of who she was: a mechanic, a fixer, a human who believed that nothing was beyond repair if you cared enough to listen to what it needed. And in a universe full of broken things waiting to be healed, that belief was the most powerful technology of all. The eternal flame pulsed with light in the darkness of space, carrying an emperor who had learned to dream again, and the memories of a mechanic who had taught him how. Together they flew toward tomorrow, reforged and whole. The galaxy would never be the same.